when we are interacting with non-residents concerned, to spend adequate time, to understand the facts, to gather the facts, to ensure that our database on the basis of which we are planning and advising our clients concerned is adequately strong, and therefore we are able to repeat our planning, go through the entire process again, and then advise our clients properly concerned. To take a small example, when you're talking about a person, his determination of residential status under Section 6 of the Income Tax Act, one is normally required to find out the physical presence test. We have a particular presence test given in Section 6. We have an explanation thereunder which says, in particular circumstances, where a person, for example, were to leave this country for the purpose of employment outside of India, or when he were to come into this country on a visit to this country, then we have an extended stay permissible and possible, such that you could continue to remain a not ordinarily resident as far as, or a non-resident is concerned as far as those years are involved. Now, what do you mean by a person leaving the country for the purpose of employment outside of India? It could be a very interesting way of interpretation. Should I be unemployed here and should I take up a job there? Should I change my employer when I go outside the country? When a present employer sends me on a work assignment, can I be said to have left the country for the purpose of employment outside the country? Very interesting situations can arise. Similarly, when a person comes on a visit to India, question arises, if I have in the early part of the year come on a visit to India, subsequently in the same year when I come back permanently into this country, then for one visit I would have had the aspect of visit helping me. On the second visit, I come back permanently into this country. Can I still take advantage of the extended stay in this country by saying, look here, when I came into this country for the first time, that character of visit was for a temporary period, and for a temporary visit, when I have an intention to go back, the concessional stay of 182 days is permissible, and having entered that domain of a concessional spirit or a concessional stay, no law should be able to take away that concession merely because at a subsequent point of time in the same financial year, I have become a resident, but I have come back into this country for a permanent stay. That should not in any manner derogate upon or impinge upon the concessional regime or a benefit that I was otherwise entitled to by virtue of the initial portion of my visit being for a temporary duration here. These problems can go, this type of interesting situations can go on. We have very many occasions in the course of our discussions with non-resident Indians to look into the fact pattern, to understand the implications, to understand the type of incomes, to understand the way in which they have structured their investments outside. And then after, apply the domestic law. Within the domestic law, we have very specific provisions dealing with non-residents concerned. We have to therefore be very familiar with those provisions concerned. We have to be very familiar with those provisions concerned because we have specific regimes for non-residents. Chapter 12, Chapter 12A, 115C to 115I, capital gains computation, Section 10 computation, Section 10 exemptions are very specific schemes and sections that are available as a benefit to a non-resident concern. Understand those tax implications very correctly. Understand the fundamental provisions of the charge, computation, residential status also. Look at the treaty also to say that does the treaty give you any benefit? Are you entitled for the concessions under a treaty? Is there a possibility of you taking advantage of a treaty concern in a particular manner and advise the client concern? Now, when you talk about taking advantage of the treaty, the recent emphasis on the OECD model commentary is on the abuse of a treaty. They are now laying a great emphasis on the abuse of a treaty and say that an abuse of a treaty has to be abhorred, has to be prevented, has to be discouraged. Now, take an example. What do you talk about an abuse of a treaty? When you are a resident of two countries concerned by physical presence test, then the law would say, look into the alternate test laid down, the tiebreaker test laid down, and find out of which country are you a resident of. And one of the tests is that you are a resident of that country where you have a permanent home available to you or where your economic interests are more densely concentrated. Now, it's very easy for a person concerned when he finds that his economic interests are in country B and his permanent home is in country B. It's very easy for him to shift both the economic interest and the house to another jurisdiction concerned. He can, by shifting that house, by shifting the economic interest, thereafter say, I had for all these years an economic interest in this country. I had a permanent home in this country, but in the present year being the year relevant for determination of which country I am a resident of, in this country, I am not having a permanent home. I don't have economic interest, and therefore I cannot be under the tiebreaker test be regarded as a resident of this country concerned. Now, there are adequate opportunities available. The question therefore now is, when this type of structuring is adopted by an individual, is it abuse of a treaty or is it use of a treaty? The OECD is saying now in its model commentary that these are types of events or plannings that have to be discouraged because they don't look at a natural course of conduct of a person concerned. They look at artificial devices being created solely to avoid tax liability. In India, at least, the Supreme Court over a period of time has consistently held that you are able to take advantage of treaty shopping. We have no qualms about, we have nothing to say against treaty shopping. If you are adopting a particular device solely to take advantage of a treaty provisions, we would not look at it with suspicion. We would therefore grant our blessings to such a device or a strategy adopted. Very recently, again, in Walford Shares and Securities concerned, Supreme Court said, use of a particular provision because it is existing there shall not be equivalent to abuse of the very same provision, and therefore, if there is a treaty provision available for us, if you are able to make use of it, the use of that particular provision shall not be regarded as an abuse of that provision to be looked at with suspicion by the tax authorities concerned. So, the aspect therefore of a use or an abuse is a very constant battle between taxpayers, advisors and the governments concerned. One does visualize and see in the direct taxes code also the anti-avoidance provisions being with a lot of vengeance and a lot of venom and force coming in to say that if there is some transaction which a normal human being would not have otherwise conducted, and if I find somebody else has done that, then I will disregard this transaction and look at the underlying motive, look at the underlying legal form of the transaction to levy a tax upon an individual concern. And therefore, today for us, as professionals concerned, this is a constant challenge at looking at the individual concern, gathering his facts, understanding the law, understanding a treaty, advising him properly such that in the process of advice, we don't overstep the borders of what is said to be in use or an abuse of a provision concern. Therefore, there are two types of advices we will possibly be called upon to render to a non-resident Indian concern. One is when he is already in a problem. Second is when he is asking you for strategic active advice. In that situation, we are asking for strategic active advice. Possibly we have to be a little more conservative. We have to restrain ourselves not to be offensive about the strategies to be adopted. But when we are defending a person concerned, when we are asked to defend a person concerned, possibly we could be far more aggressive, far more innovative, far more offensive about the defense that we need to be taking into account for the purpose of protecting the interest of that non-resident individual concerned. And this gamut of these various provisions and treaties possibly will lead us to this Jnana Marga, the road to knowledge, for us to be not only acquiring this knowledge, but be a multifaceted personality so that we'll be able to render valuable services to our clients concerned. Thank you all for a very patient here.